It looks like crap, but at least we're on. The lighting is terrible, and I'm all green, but whatever.
You were all green.
I am very green. That's the trick. I'm always angry.
Somebody said go, so I imagine we're on the air.
Okay, that's great. Well, welcome back. Thanks, Johnny Million, for letting me know. I'm working on it. I'm trying to get us together as far as the audio situation. I think all's well at this point. Am I? Can you check for me just so I know you're there?
Check
Check
one,
one,
two.
two.
I'm
I'm
here.
here.
Oh, you're doubling up. That's fun. So obviously I have to fix that over here. Okay, now, which means I've got to put Chicago in here, and that's what's up. Anyways, there's a lot going on, needless to say, in the computer world. Not the least of which is my own problems getting online and live streaming and the like. But it's not that strange in this particular situation because this is the big war front that will come. When people talk about, I've always been of the opinion, Donald Trump lately has been talking about how, um, I'm the only president that could guarantee to you, guarantee that there will not be a World War II. Recently, that's been one of his things. That I will make sure we don't have
Hopefully, we can avoid that. That'd be amazing if we could
it
avoid
would.
World War
I would
II.
prefer it. Yeah, exactly. I don't know if it's possible, obviously, because it would require Doc Brown and an update to the car. Um,
Lots
but
of DeLoreans.
all jokes aside, he was saying he could be the one to stop World War III, which he says we're already at the brink of and will probably already happen before he gets into office, which is even
And
stranger.
only he can stop it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I alone can fix it. Is we're back to that stuff again, and it's the same
Yeah.
blather we hear all the time. Um, and in this, and I think, hey, we are live streaming. It is actually working. Go figure. I mean, it looks like garbage, but at least I'm here. So the um, again, one of the biggest things they had a piece of gear for people who are just joining us from the live stream. There was a Russian botnet and a Chinese hacker group that were knocked offline by the U.S. government, by the Defense Department, and they announced it this week. But then there was also this disgruntled employee of a Chinese tech firm who that work in cybersecurity for the CCP, and he dumped a bunch of stuff on the internet that showed how they work, what they do, all the gear that they use, how they've been using it. Not the least of which are like little pieces of gear that they can, put it next to your house. It looks about the size of a power bank, and it can spoof your Wi-Fi so that it just takes everything out, whatever's going on in that Wi-Fi system, it can take away. Now, does all of it work? Probably not. Is all of it, is it good against consumer stuff? Yes. Is it good enough against, to do real IP theft against, major technological companies? Absolutely not. But it's the minor, contractors that are the weak spot most of the time, anyways, both at home and at the office. And a big part of like the Russians' botnet success that they had been talking about this week was the very fact that they were just using the original admin passwords that came with routers, that people never updated those things, that they get
That's
everybody's like,
madness.
gets nervous, buys a new router with new security protocols, and then never changes the admin password. So it's admin 1234 or something ridiculous like that. And there's enough
Yeah.
of them that have not been changed where they have the ability to get into these things. That concerning? Absolutely. There were reports in this about how they broke into a Vietnamese airline, got the names and personal information of all the passengers that had flown on this Vietnamese airline. I guess forever. I don't know, like however long the records go back for this
Seriously.
particular Vietnamese airline. But one of the biggest ones, one of the standout things about it was this software that they showed on here that helped them run disinformation campaigns and hack accounts on X, on Twitter. Specifically, the ability to it's like it's sort of like a phishing message they could send on Twitter that would allow them, if you clicked on the link, to access your DMs and therefore send, receive, and modify your account, in the background all the time. And they had done this with, the idea I think most people have is that they're going to, they'll take over, Bradley Cooper's X and post something, America sucks on there and then shut it down, or some sort of like kind of big blathering semi-anonymous style We Are Legion attack that shows their hand or whatever, or in the background just usurps private information from people, for identity theft or something. The vast majority of what they did was take over what are effectively, if not dead, dull accounts on X. These are accounts that people set up but barely ever used, or had abandoned, or a lot of people who quit Twitter but never turned their account off, or
Sure.
only
Yeah.
check
Yeah.
in rarely. And what they would do is they would take those accounts, which people just never go back to, and use them to post as Joe Plumber American 12795765431 kaboom on, I am Joe from Ohio, that kind of thing, and do these, enormous pushes to cause dissension in the, amongst the general populace in the United States. Take multiple extreme positions, attribute them to the marginal center of the ideological sphere, ping pong people back and forth, so they think, the 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 conversation has gone completely off the rails. We're the most divided we've ever been. All that talk that you hear happens largely because of the conversations that are happening online. And we now know from this report and from this guy, releasing this information, that that was the intention. That they were effectively building that dissension. That the much ballyhooed civil war that is coming to the United States, the tipping point of the race war, the trans war, the MAGA war, whatever it is, that online seems like a very real thing sometimes because of the
Yeah.
volume of support it seems to have, is a Trojan horse. It's a paper tiger. It is a farce. And it is why you see things online. I think the best example is probably the trucker convoy. The reality versus the online picture of it. The
Mm-hmm.
the AR version of this thing. 700,000 trucks. Well, 70,000. Well, 7,000. Well,
Well,
700.
7.
Well, 70. Well, 7. Well, some of the people that are there have an IQ over 7. That's where it ended up being. And the real excuse me. The reality is that these folks, these patterns that they create. One of the things that is, I guess, if you're looking at the bright side about this, is that as much as these folks would want to create dissent within the country, to foment dissent within the
Just
United
lost your
States.
audio, Hal.
Oh, that's always fun and terrible.
There we go.
Yeah, is it back and it came
You're
a
back.
second? Okay, I turned myself back on and off and back
Oh,
on
now
as
you're not.
you'll be. I'm fine. There I am. Hello, check one, check it two, check it three, check it four. Can you hear me?
Nothing, honey. Can't hear
Oh,
you, bud.
how about now? How about now? Check it one, check it two. Is it okay? That's so fun. Check one, check two, check three. Is it possible? Check it one. Here we go. Is it always? It's just my thing, and it's just what happens. It's what it
Oh,
must
there
be.
you are.
There I am. It just came back for the heck of it. That was. I think that was just internet brain fart right there. While I'm talking about this, and while I look like Princess Leia asking Obi-Wan for you, help
Oh,
me,
it's Obi-Wan
Obi-Wan.
Kenobi. Your
You're
only
our only
hope.
hope. Yes. That one of the things about this is that um, oftentimes, how we talk about, like, in Trump world, it's all about projection. They're always trying to slather onto, Biden and the other side what Trump is up to. Well, that's a common malady in the world of dictators and psycho leaders. And a lot of times, what would cause dissent or be the tipping point for dissent in China or in Russia for that matter, is very different than what it would be to tip that off over here. Because as much as people might not think so in the United States, the cushion in the United States is much thicker than it is in rural China, for example, where if you make $400 a month, you're in poverty. But if you make $401 a month, congratulations, you are out of poverty. So stop complaining.
Hey.
Yeah. And the same thing is true of sort of the areas outside of the big cities in Russia where they don't have, people don't have indoor plumbing and they're using outhouses in 2024. That the idea of what it would take to convince those people to rise up and do something if they had access to an internet and a consistent stream of, you don't deserve this, you deserve better. It wouldn't be that hard in those areas. In America,
Yeah, it's an easy improvement.
yeah, it's you don't have to push people when they're on that edge. But in the United States, honest to God, they're very frustrated right now at how, for some reason, while you've got plenty of these QAnon maggots running around joining Trump at these gatherings, there's just something not setting off the massive waves of maggots willing to storm up the steps of capitals all across the country. And as a matter of fact, even when Donald Trump gathered his largest crowd to date in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, only a small sliver of those idiots actually attacked the Capitol. That's the
small sliver of idiots.
that's the name of his third autobiography. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. At least stuff is starting to kind of work. All right, we'll just settle in on that. Just kinda, a little blurbs, but we'll be fine. Okay, we'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Oh my gosh! All right, so hold on. This light is way too bright, and
Night.
yeah, and too orangey, and I can turn it down a little bit so it's not quite as. There we go. All right, little better, little bit. It's a lot doing. I did actually a show before the show last night. I actually did a before the Flapper show, I did a live stream, and usually I don't do both in the same night, but I couldn't stop myself. So, love my jacket. Thank you. It's just a windbreaker because I was freezing. It's cold back here.
I can hear you. Can you not? Can you hear Chicago?
I cannot hear Chicago. I can hear you. I don't know why. That's very strange.
I don't know how we manage this.
Me neither. Hold on one second. I'm going to try and see if I can solve that. Try again, Johnny Million. Check for me.
Check 1 2.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Hello.
I hear Chicago now, but you're doubled up.
Oh, yay.
Yeah, super fun. It's either I hear you twice or Chicago not at all. It's very strange. So you'll have to work it out for me.
I'll try to say half is twice as much and half as many words.
It's just so wrong on so many fronts. Yeah, because the guest window is turned off. Yeah, it shouldn't be. All right, I'll figure it out. But let me know when we're back, or if we're back, or when we're back. Yeah, that kind of thing.
We're about 2 minutes away.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look at that. I need to do. I know what I can do. I can go up to audio thingies. And I go to guest window, and it says monitor off. And I turn that, and then that's not what I need. Guest one is turned. Let's see. Is that mute? Guest one. Is it hidden? Is that why? It is. It's active, but I don't want it there. No. How about this? Turn it. Wait. Check for me, Johnny.
Checking 1 2. Check 1 2. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Check 1 2.
Yeah, you're doubling up. Okay. Try this. Check again.
Check.
Yeah, not solving it at all. So you'll have to tell me when we're back from Chicago, because I'll get doubled up. I'm gonna try and copy their link and put them in there so that I can solve it for when Phil comes on and I really throw a monkey wrench in here. Mm.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm going to take this and I'll slide this down here. Down here. Now I should be able to hear them, Chicago, when they come back, but I hope so.
Okay.
There we go.
15 seconds.
Hey,
15 seconds.
I heard them and you're not doubling up. It's beautiful. I fixed it. Good
Yay!
Lord. People are like, did Hal sleep yet? Not really.
No.
And I'm driving back to Vegas right after this. And I know I'm green, but
I know I'm only on 1 day a week. I get it. I'm gonna have to jump on GarageBand and start sawing something. This is the House Bar Show.
Guitar.
And then a guitar note, and then progressive, and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Hey, Hal, did you mean something like this?
This is the House Bar Show. And then a guitar note, and then progressive, and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
The House Party's radio program, mega worldwide.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
now Chicago has an echo, but it's fine because it's not on all the time like your voice would be. I'm fine. I'm going to be okay.
Doesn't matter.
You sound great, though. You sound fabulous.
Yay.
I was gonna say, Johnny Million. And apparently, according to you, the tracking says that you're
Gonna be here between 12 and 4 Central Time. I'm geeked.
I have to say, I had to get a case for it because it's a very strange
It's a
shape.
weird size.
Yeah. And so you may like the case as much as you like the actual guitar.
Ooh.
So it was a base case. It had to be that big.
Nice.
Yeah, Summer.
Yeah, because of all the weird points.
Yeah, exactly. Summer was it was funny. She's like, I think the shipping and the case might cost more than the guitar at some point. I'm like, will you just let me
Probably.
will you just let me be nice to Johnny Million? It's
Let
for
me
God's
do
sake,
the thing.
let me just do it. Yeah. So they I wanted to sort of bring up the hacking that's going on to remind people during this election year to be dubious first. To when you see anything now, online a story, whatever, they're going to undermine trusted sources. Remember that too. Is that there's a two-prong, I mean, it's a multi-prong attack. It's really an octopus of disinformation. But the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranians, even the Saudis have been engaged in this for a very long time. And our government, the Mossad and other groups, the UK, like MI6, they fight back against this stuff. We have a different tactic though, because it might shock people, but the United States does not and will not shut off the power to people's hospitals in countries just to mess with them. Yeah, that's not something we do. We haven't ever done it, and we're not ever going to do it. The Chinese have done it and deny it. The Russians do it all the time and admit to it. They're not shy about what they do in this regard. And as more of these stories come out, and you're going to see more of them, between now and the spring, there's probably going to be 10 botnets taken down by the Pentagon stories that are going to come out on the regular because they're rooting them out now. They're going through all the systems. Here's an example. This week, the Biden administration, specifically Joe Biden, wrote an executive order around cybersecurity and the cranes operating at our ports. 80% of the cranes in the United States that pick up big shipping containers are, no surprise, made in China because they're old and they've been around for a long time. And that's where they were making a lot of these things. I made a joke when I went to China that the panda shouldn't be the national, animal of China. It should be the crane, because everywhere I went, it was just nonstop. I was on bullet trains, and they were just, you'd look out into these rando like areas where they're wouldn't necessarily, there's not supposed to be a city out there, and here's this city springing up with cranes everywhere. And I, like an idiot, marveled at it at the time because I was like, oh, how lovely. They have 1.4 billion people. And they are building enough homes for all of them, and they're going to have, people will have their choice, and they certainly don't have an issue with the real estate market being, with the low volume and in available real estate, right? And the crane being a play on words, everybody in the chat room, and now, of course, I know that they were building ghost cities that no one will ever live in, and black mold moved in before any of the people ever even got a chance to see the apartment they paid for with their life savings. I have to say, when I look at these ghost cities, and if you want to really dive into it, look up Xiong'an, Xiong'', Xiong'an, which is a district below, and Johnny is going to type it up right now, is a district just southwest of Beijing that was meant
What was the second after Xiong?
An. That was an area that was designed. It's Xi Jinping's big project, one of his big projects. And this Xiong'an was supposed to be this area where it was like an industrial suburb that they were going to build from scratch on all this farmland for people to move in. Just rows and rows and rows of office towers and apartment buildings and all this stuff. And it was going to be a thriving community. People in the chat.
What's impressive?
Yeah, feel free to look it up. It's just if you look at the amount of empty apartments or just the volume of apartments, you're like, this would be so useful in any place where people actually lived. Well, no one lives there. There's maybe a dozen people in a city that could hold maybe 300,000 people. Completely useless, all of it empty. Most of the apartments don't even have windows. They just have open holes, so the rain and whatever has been getting in there. There's like furniture and drywall in there, but no windows. It's just awful. It's just terrible. And the waste. Let's just start there. The waste of resources. And the only way it makes any sense to me to do something like this so poorly is the inflatable tanks in World War II.
Yep.
The inflatable tanks in World War II that the Allies used to make the Germans think that we were coming from a different direction on D-Day, and so they thought these camps and these tanks were real from the air. And so anybody looking at it from the sky went, oh my God, look at the force that is coming. And from an economic standpoint...
When you said, oh my God, look, for some reason I immediately went, baby got back. Oh my God, Becky.
Right. Have you seen those apartment buildings? They are so big and useless. But if you look at these building things, and it'll have the impact on you that I think that it certainly had on me when I was there. I was very impressed. And when they bring around foreign dignitaries, and when they used to bring around, business people from the United States and the UK and Germany and stuff, and walk them around and show them these giant buildings, oh my God, because the idea is, it's kind of like MAGA world. Like, there's this illusion that Trump, nobody would slather gold on furniture like this unless they were rich. Like, what kind of an idiot pretends to be this kind of rich? It's embarrassing. Who would, you know what I mean? Like, most of us have such a level of normal shame where you're like, look,
Sure.
Either he's the world's biggest con man, or this guy's actually rich, which is, and somebody's giving him loans, so he must be really rich. That must be it. It's the only thing that makes sense at this point. And and the same thing in China. Like, who would build all these buildings if you didn't have all these people? Who would build all these shopping malls and these office parks if you didn't have a thriving economy? Well, weirdly enough, apparently, the only reason they were built was as a facade, as a creation to give the illusion of this growth to continue to draw business in from all over the world, that this is an emerging market. Look at how Hollywood bought it hook, line, and sinker. Oh my God, this market, the NBA. Oh my God, the market for our, so we're going to make more money playing pickup games in Beijing, Nanjing, Chongqing, and Guangzhou than we'll ever make in the regular NBA in all of the United States, because of 1 billion people. And they bought it. They went all in on it. And people were fired for suggesting that Taiwan was a country. People big time NBA players were shamed online and then had to offer mea culpas online, apologies to the John Cena, who, us in the sort of like Sinophile, expat crowd who used to like traveling to China and stuff, but then learned the hard way that it wasn't all that we had hoped it was. A lot of people over there call him John Sheena because he was a puppet for Xi Jinping. Literally had to. He suggested Taiwan was a country in a Fast and Furious press gaggle, and had to do this real
walk that back.
Yeah, in Chinese, just kowtowing. Yeah, and LeBron James has just been horrible about it. Don't even get me started on the slavery in China. And
I can hardly kowtow in English.
That's true. I'm still waiting for an apology from you. I've given up. It's not coming. But
you know what you did.
You know what you did, and you still do it. Anyways, so yeah, and at this point, I'm starting to like it. Let's just be abundantly clear. Anytime somebody says forced labor, that's a euphemism for slavery. There is no other version. There's no such situation where someone is forced to work against their will that isn't slavery. That what part of that is somehow different? I mean, in the murder versus attempted murder, murder versus manslaughter situation that it seems to be attempting to soften the blow, like they have their own apartment, we let them keep some stuff in their building. You think slaves didn't have their own quarters and they didn't get to make dolls to give to their kids and all that kind of stuff? It didn't make it any less slavery, you nutcase. It's horrifying. So, anyways, that I have to say that in looking at the kind of the facade that China was putting forward, this look at our growing industry, and if you want any real growth, not these old markets that'll grow about 2%, we're digging out of a hole here. The growth is all growth all the time. If you want a piece of this, you better behave. You can't refer to Taiwan as you have to. In Top Gun, when they released Top Gun over there, they had Tom Cruise's jacket had a Taiwan flag on it, because the idea is, and this is true, American pilots trained with the Taiwanese, and a lot of them spent time over there, and a lot of our ace fighter pilots showed them, their wares and taught them and trained with them and engaged in war games with them and the South Koreans and all this stuff. And they came away with a patch, and a lot of them put it on their bomber jacket because it was a sign of pride that they had worked with the Taiwanese. And then when Top Gun's released in China, they made them change it. Not this time.
Wow.
In the new movie Maverick, they put his patch back. Because and that's a sign that things have changed. We took I blazed past the break, but we got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Kitty in the chat is saying China has 30 million extra men, enough for lots of meat waves in war. Except I will call that into question when we return. And I'll tell you why. And I'll give you a hint. Retirement plan. We'll be back. Excuse me. Ugh,
Poor little Hal with his
I'm all
claw.
right. Yeah. I'm a little puffy this morning because I was, like, it's always hard to sleep with a cough. You know what I mean?
Oh God, it's the worst.
Because I got to bed probably 1:30 after my show last night. And yeah, how, Brad, how are you about to lawyer the shit out of this? Yes, I am. I'm just hoping, by the way, that when I bring in Phil, that doesn't just like break the bank.
Don't even say it.
Mm, make them, yeah. Maybe if I hide the screen, does that help? Then I go up here and I always end up like in middle of the show, just like turning off software, and then it turns out to have nothing to do with it, nothing at all.
Yep. Oh
Yeah,
God, yeah, that's troubleshooting 101.
yeah. I'm like, turn that
Undo
software.
all the stuff that you cared about, all the
Yeah,
things that you like
all that.
toiled over. It's like,
Right.
well, it must be that thing.
Yep. And it's not.
It's not.
Nope. Hold on one second. What I will do is put this thing under here to tilt my laptop up. Go away, OneDrive. I don't. Why are you opening? Go away. What?
I'm not opening.
What?
Welcome back to the House Farts radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I get a little bit of an echo from Chicago. It's totally fine. Don't try to do anything. Don't try to fix anything. It's fine.
Don't touch the
Don't
thing.
don't touch it. It's fine. But it's there. But I guess the key message I want to put forward right now is that and one of my cause celebs right now, and I think is super crucial, is that I feel like a lot of the sort of political nihilism we see on the right, and to some degree on what would be colloquially referred to as the far left, or who I call hashtag faux-gressives, the TYT,
I
Jimmy
like
Dore
it.
crowd and all that stuff, the people who pretend to be progressive but somehow hate progress. You can't be progressive, I think. This is my rule, not anybody else's. And if you differ with me on this, that's fine. I just think you're silly. Is if you're against measurable progress. If you can make any step forward is good always, because democracy is constant gardening, and the idea is that
Yep.
any progress you're making, I've always said that revolution
It's
is
just
this.
like anything
Yeah,
that is worth that's worth caring about, keeping, maintaining relationships, everything. It all takes constant
yeah, upkeep.
um upkeep,
Yes, and if you really
which
care
is a
about it,
lot easier than tearing down the house and building it again.
right, or building fake houses that no one will ever live in, which is in many ways the same kind of situation we're talking about. With sort of China's view of what living spaces is and the like. So over the next, not only is revolution the 6-minute abs of democracy, it's the lap band of democracy. Instead of doing the
Ooh,
work, just get your stomach stapled politically.
I like that. I like it.
I mean, it's absurd at this point, and it's cartoonish. If you want, look no further than I think two of the ways that it's being, that politics is being discussed, both in the MAGA crowd, which is Trump saying, we will fix this in instantly, right away, right out of the gate, the first day, we'll solve it right away, right after the election, before Trump even takes power, things will get better, just magically. Which, by the way, if you believe that, then you believe that the entire country crashed right after Joe Biden took office, because that was also his other prediction in the other direction,
It
right?
means that you will feel better about the hate in your heart, and it's just you'll forget
I
about
couldn't.
everybody else's problems.
I couldn't possibly. So
You couldn't feel any better about the hate in your heart than
no,
you
I
do
couldn't.
right now.
Not right now. Yeah, absolutely. It's but the other part is what I would call the Marianne Williamson angle. Now we lost her in the fight for, and I do mean fight, FITE, for democracy, when she dropped out of the race recently. Um, Something having to do with the fact that her entire South Carolina campaign team turned on her for being mean.
That was pretty amazing.
And again, I worked with her for years. I know her very, very well.
She was awful to you.
I have plenty
Cal
of
called me crying.
I have plenty of tea to spill. If she ever became president, you know how much money I would make selling books about my time with Marianne was like I'd
Mm,
be
mm, mm.
if you think the weird whistleblowers that Jim Jordan's bringing in front of oh my God, James Comer would be calling me before the committee to to tell all about Marianne Williamson's her weird culty stuff back in the 90s. All right. So anyways, her thing was, and this was the language of how people were talking about this. It's very crucial. She said, we're going to turn this country around. We're going to do a 180. We're going to this economy doesn't work for people. We're going to make a 180. Okay, never mind the fact that a 180 would take us back to what Trump was doing. Like if you
Can we do it? Can we do can we do a 45? Let's do a 45.
Yeah, like maybe just a 12-degree diversion because
Oh, yeah.
turning it around, it's like if you say that during the Obama years, for example, and if you were to say that we needed to make this a 180, we got to take it back to turn it right around. Well, then you'd be going, well, let's go back to 2008 and the crash and Hank Paulson and the policies of the Bush administration that gave us the crash, that allowed for these credit default swap crazy things to just build and build and build and build until they fell apart. Why would you want to go back to that? Why would you want to go back to Trumponomics in that regard? Especially as wages are really rising. We've got the longest stretch of below 4% unemployment in 50 years, more than 50 years. And somebody actually thinks a winning message was, we're going to do a 180. With Trump in your rearview mirror and the damage that man sought to do and the economic policy that he had, which was simply giant tax cut, giant cuts in regulations, do you at least recognize that even saying 180 would bring that to mind? Even your messaging sucks in that moment. But if you're caught in a trap, if you're caught in a revolutionary mindset,
Mhm.
then everything is just a sandcastle that needs to be knocked over and rebuilt. And it's at a certain point, it is not how you manage a civil society. You cannot maintain a functioning society if you got to start over from scratch all the time. This is what also drives me crazy about the use of the word establishment. Oh boy.
Mm.
People, establishment, the establishment. Okay, first of all, when you're talking about political parties like the DNC or the RNC, the political parties have every right to establish an organization and try to run it based on the platform that they agree on through conventions and all kinds of other stuff. Of course, it's going to be established because they establish a new platform every year and they modify it. They're not doing the DNC is not doing a 180 on its platform every year, and neither is the RNC. It's just lunacy. Why would you even float that? So to float it on the greater scale with our democracy is even more idiotic. But we establish these truths to be self-evident. The establishment of our government was an establishment. Honest to God, the constitutional government of our country can be defined as an establishment. It was made. It is not natural. Dictatorships and monarchies being what they are, and religious theocracies being the kind of primary system that people have governed themselves with or been governed by for millennia, a democracy is a brand new crazy thing. And so we had to establish it from scratch. The word establish is in the Constitution, and the fascinating part of it is that's why the attacks on quote-unquote the establishment, as in the languaging you hear, it's not an accident. It doesn't come from within. It comes from the people who don't like democracy. And this software I was telling you that helps, foment dissent on social media platforms.
Mhm.
It's all about taking words that mean something to you and making them mean the opposite. Taking your empathy, taking the things you care about, and weaponizing it against you and your fellow citizens so that you're easy.
Hey!
Yeah. So they're easier to take down. That's it. And that's what I want people to be on guard from. You don't have to be paranoid about it, but I don't want, because what happens is burnout. My fear is that if your empathy gets weaponized against you too often, and you don't know what to trust, and you don't know what to believe, and you kind of shrug your shoulders, you become like Karen Allen's character in Scrooged in the Ghost of Christmas Future, where she's like,
Oh,
somebody
yeah.
gave me some good advice. Scrape them off, Claire.
Ugh, I hate that scene.
Yeah, it's brutal. Thanks, Lumpy. That's my concern. We'll be back. Phil Bittner's going to join us right after the break from Ukraine, where Russia is trying to weaponize people's empathy and disgust and boredom and fear and make you stop caring about people who are fighting for their lives. And I'm not going to let it happen. We'll be back.
Oh,
Mm-mm.
right.
All right. Wish me luck.
Quick bio break. Be right back.
Okay. All right. And I think Phil's down there, so I'm going to load him in. Hey, Phil. I don't hear him. Oh, that's why. I know why. Okay, hold on. That's because we go to this one. There's Johnny. And then I'll take you and put you in here. Copy that. And I'm ice skating uphill technologically today. It's just something. And bink. Hopefully he pops in there. 3, 2, 1, and here we go. Getting close. Phil, can you check for me?
Test, test, test.
Hey,
Check
there he
one,
is.
check, check. Hey, there I am.
Excellent.
Maybe step back a little bit
No, I'll move you around. Don't
so
worry
you
about
don't have to reframe me. Okay,
No,
I'll
that's
stay
okay.
where I was.
it. Yeah. See,
Sound is okay as well.
yeah.
I'm not glitching. I'm on my mobile signal, my 4G mobile, because I am also having technical problems, and I'm not going to be able to discuss my big reveal
Oh, yes.
because the video premiere is not for another hour and change. So after this.
We'll tell we'll just
the
tease
premiere.
everybody.
We'll plug the premiere.
Yeah, we'll tease everybody
plug
to
the
follow
premiere.
you. Yeah, we'll tease everybody to follow you on your
Yeah.
on your stuff, and then that'll help. Yeah.
Are we currently going out? Are we streaming? Can
We're
people
streaming,
see us and
yes.
hear us on?
Yes.
Yeah, we are.
Yes.
All right. Well, then I'm going to keep my lips sealed. But it's a big announcement, and it's a there's a lot of work to be done still, but
Yeah.
some exciting news. So after the radio show, folks, go over to my YouTube channel. The video will premiere.
Excellent.
Pretty much right afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exciting stuff.
I'm gonna unlock Johnny and move him over. There we go. And hopefully he'll be about there. Okay. My audio's low and Phil's is loud. Okay, I'll fix that. Don't worry. Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Check. We're good.
Check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yep. Check. Yeah, I'm good. And you're good, and we're all good, and everybody's good. All right. I'll manage it as we go along. Thank you guys. Letting me know. Chat room. Love you guys. Thanks. It's just it's one of those mornings.
Mhm.
Oh, what is that?
Cheetos.
Cheese popcorn,
Back in 30.
puffed peanut, and corn.
It is peanut flavored puffs. Puffed peanut and corn snack. Highly recommended.
I'm afraid. That makes me afraid. I'm literally that. No. The only thing that does that to me is circus peanuts. Can't. Yeah. Mm-mm.
Oh.
Yeah.
These are not like.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're like circus peanuts, but they're not circus.
Oh, don't even. Oh, dear God. Sorry about the echo, chat room.
I don't care for you if it'll keep the sludge you're prowling out.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Welcome to the show. Joining us right now, Philip Ittner from live from Kiev, and he was going to make a big announcement, but we're going to make a semi-announcement, which is tune in to his YouTube channel after the show today for a big announcement of a project he's been working on for a long time. I guess that'll be our main key up. Johnny Million is still with us. He's got a YouTube channel as well. It's Johnny Million on Twitch and YouTube, and then of course. Philip Ittner, 1 L and Philip, 2 T's and Ittner, if you're just joining us in that and the like. If you want to look him up on YouTube and subscribe, that helps immensely.
Yeah.
Now, okay, we have a lot to discuss. The while the bad news was Avdiivka's fall last week, the interesting thing, and you know, feel free to correct me on this, Phil. But I don't take at face value anything that military sources tell me for a lot of reasons. Because sometimes they're, trying to put lipstick on a pig. That happens. But also, sometimes they are trying to make things look worse than they are strategically to draw out an enemy. And again, the bigger the head fake, the more successful it will be, and it's a big gambit. It's tricky, but it's worth doing sometimes. But in the last 3 days, I think the Ukrainians have shot down like 7 Russian airplanes.
Yeah. This latest one was $50 million.
Yeah, it's a giant AWAC type of like AC-30 size plane, if I'm getting that right. AC-30,
Yeah.
AC-31,
Yeah.
give or take.
Yeah.
So, first of all, how are you?
It was an Antonov 50. Well, I'm okay. It's a very somber day. It's the 2-year anniversary.
Yes.
Of the full-scale invasion, February 24th, 2022. Hard to think, that it's been a full 2 years that I've been here covering this story.
Right.
And we've been talking the entire time.
Yes, we have.
But it's a somber day. People were out on the streets of Kiev. There was a very large assembly on one of the main squares here, demanding a release of POWs. There are dignitaries that are here. Justin Trudeau, the head of the European Union, van der Leyen, she was here. Lots of people are in town to commemorate it. And, how cynically, not cynically, but I want to point out that, you're suddenly seeing news teams that have returned.
Yeah.
Because ever since October 7th and the escalate, the war in Gaza and Israel, this place has fallen off of the front pages. And what upsets me about the state of journalism today is that, these guys have flown back in, but they're only going to be here for 2 weeks. They're going to come in for the anniversary. They'll do a couple of things, a couple of extra things, and then they'll fly away again. There is no longer a sustained presence of the International Press Corps here. With some notable exceptions, of course. But sure. But it is dropped off from what it used to be. And I was up filming at the main square, the two main churches that lie at either end of a street here, St. Sophia's Cathedral and St. Michael's Cathedral. And I was up there filming and kind of talking about these anniversaries, because it isn't just the 2-year anniversaries. There's the 10-year anniversary this week of the Maidan uprising, which kind of started this whole thing in 2014. And I went into the Intercontinental Hotel, and the Intercon is kind of ground zero for the press corps, the International Press Corps. And there was a time where you could walk in there and you could see, any take your pick, any journalist from any organization in the world,
Right.
going for a lunch or a beer or a coffee in the lobby bar, and it's kind of returned to what it was,
Right.
but it's notable that it hasn't been that way for months since October,
Yeah.
and it's not good. It's really not good that the price tag. I think that there are accountants in these various news organizations that are looking at the bottom line and going, we're going to get a lot more people are much more invested, or it's the new shiny object, and we have infrastructure down in Israel, so
Yeah.
we are going to pay more attention to what's happening there instead of this massive price tag that we have with maintaining two conflict zones. And Ukraine is kind of, it's been around for a while. It's
Yeah.
not the new shiny toy that'll draw audience ratings or clicks or whatever. So, all of these things I discuss in the blog that we'll be publishing shortly after, if my internet signal
Yeah.
works out for me. We're all having technical problems today. I discussed this in the blog, and it's not good. We got to keep Ukraine in people's minds, and we got to keep, if for no other reason, we got to keep the pressure on our elected officials
Right.
to finally get that bill onto the floor. So, but you are on the positive side of things. You started talking about the air. There is something going on with
Yep.
Ukraine has some sort of new weapon system. So
Well,
there are too many planes being shot down. It might be their tactics, because we know that in
right.
the immediate withdrawal of Avdiivka, they kind of drew out a couple of fighter bombers,
Mm-hmm.
but something else is happening. There's a new system here, and something is knocking these planes. With almost daily, we're hearing
Well,
Russian
yeah.
planes being knocked out of the sky.
The word I have heard on the sort of Telegram channels that I follow, and it's that they have a Soviet S-200 system, anti-aircraft system that the Ukrainians have or whatever, and they just either had lacked munitions for it, or there's been an up mod in it. Either they've retrofitted it with a better computer targeting system, or with AI or something, but it clicked that thing into near Patriot level status. But that's what shot down that the A50, or the A50.
The AN-50,
Yeah.
the AN-50
Yeah,
today, the Antonov.
that was a Soviet S-200 system that had been modified in some way. They're not talking about how, and it's not surprising, because again, it's not the launch system, it's not, it's the guidance system and how they hit these things, and maybe something that lowers their energy output so that they can hide their, where they are some of the time, maybe. But the main thing would be how quickly it can target and launch, and how successful that the contact is. And that seems to be the thing they fixed. So again, this may be a situation where the Ukrainians, like they've done with these cardboard drones and other things, they are, MacGyvering their way through this war, which they shouldn't have to, right? But they are. They are.
But it is a and it also is a testament to their ingenuity
Yeah.
and their determination.
Right.
But you're right; they shouldn't have to. I mean, we should. The F-16s are coming soon.
Yep.
So that'll be a plus. But we have got to get more ammunition here. That's the real big issue right now, is more ammunition, more anti-aircraft stuff, and more artillery rounds.
Mm.
And that's crucial. That's what happened in Avdiivka, is they didn't have the artillery rounds to respond to the thousands of artillery rounds that the Russians were
Right.
firing off.
Yeah.
So
North Korea just transferred.
it-
I'll have to look up the volume of it, but just transferred an enormous number of munitions to the Russians, specifically for that purpose, specifically for fire.
Yeah.
For just the an onslaught of artillery to attack
Yeah.
Ukrainian positions. That said, they got a 20% fail rate as far as duds.
Mhm.
mismanufacturing a lot of stuff. So maybe half of those things ultimately will work as it says on the tin, as it were. But still, damaging and deadly and an ongoing concern, which the Chinese have also hardened their language about Gaza recently, which in a very curious sentiment, largely I think to just manipulate sentiment in the United States. They're just following the sort of protest language that you're seeing in the United States and UK. They don't genuinely care. What they're doing is they're trying to foment that part and side with it and make themselves look like the peaceniks. In many ways, the same way Russia was saying, we've got a peace plan, they just won't meet with us. It's the, or remember China's plan for Russia and Ukraine peace back in the day,
Hmm.
a year and a half ago, where they had this 12
Yeah.
point peace plan, which did involve anything but like Russia just keeping what it got and Ukraine, being salami sliced for the rest of its existence. Um, the same thing is true with Gaza as far as China's concerned, but they know that they can get certain African warlords and other people to side with them, especially the Arab ones in Sudan and places like that, that will, are on the side of the Palestinians, so they'll win over that crowd and use it as a political manipulation tool to get in there with them because they, like I said, they don't genuinely care, but they're using the same language.
Well,
Um,
they want to exert their soft power. They want to be seen as
right.
power brokers and kind of usurp the American diplomatic
Yeah, it's
efforts
not going to happen.
globally. So
Yeah,
no,
it's
no, of course it isn't. They're going to try, but they're going to. It's not going to work.
right. So North Korea transferred, I think it was 10,000 containers of munitions to Russia recently, which again, even with a 50% fail rate, that's a lot. That's
Yeah,
that's a horrifying amount of munitions, and basically just for the sake of, and Russia's indiscriminately firing them into areas. They don't. I mean, they're effectively. You want to talk about dumb bombs? That's what we're talking about. They don't even. We've seen footage of both Russian artillery guys and in much almost parallel with the Gaza artillery things. With guys using mortar rounds and long range mortars, which they don't even they're not even measuring where they're going. In Gaza, that means civilian deaths. In Russia, and in Ukraine, that means they may be landing on their own troops half the time. And with the death rate we've seen, it wouldn't be surprising at all. It's just horrible.
yeah. And they're going to need, if they intend to push west out of Avdiivka. Now they've opened up a whole range of different new points along the line.
Yeah.
But if they do, they're going to need that artillery if they try to push west from Avdiivka, because as tragic as the loss of Avdiivka was, in some ways it puts the Ukrainians in a better defensive position. Because,
Yep.
and here is the advantage of actually having reporters on the ground here. There's no substitute for actual on the ground news gathering. I have been to that part of Donbass, and what it is think of Pickett's Charge. It's long, sloping, open fields with
Ugh.
this very, slow grade rise to a tree line, and then a drop off, and then a slow, gradual rise to another tree line. So if you can put in defensive lines along those tree lines and command the entire sloping field that approaches you, any armor or infantry that comes through there is going to just be decimated.
Yep.
But they could use artillery to break up those defenses. So
Right.
it's a difficult
Yeah,
situation.
that's the purpose. That's what they're going to use them for. And then they'll hit some civilian places behind them to try and terrorize the population and the like. I mean, that's the methodology right now. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. And I want to discuss that there continue to be these like drone attacks inside Russia that are ongoing, and these sort of this metallurgical plant and an aircraft factory that was also hit. That a lot of the talk or the assumption is that the drones are coming from Ukraine into Russian territory, and in some cases that might not be the case. These may be drones launched from within Russia by Russians themselves or Ukrainian groups that are sympathizers that have gotten inside there that are flying them even closer to their target, and that's why they're beating the radar. We'll talk about that when we come back, and also we'll take your questions. Johnny Million's looking at them in the chat room at infotainmentwars.com or twitch.tv/HalSparks. Like, subscribe, give a thumbs up, support the show. We'll be back. And yet, by the way, they're talking about Transnistria. The Institute for the Study of War was talking about how
Yeah.
they're actually plotting the Transnistria takeover. And I don't think people understand uh,
Well,
the
this narrative that they might try to push out of Transnistria towards Odessa? The Russians might try that?
know that they're going to officially annex Transnistria as part of Russia
Yes.
is the next step.
Yeah.
That's what
They're-
ISW were saying. And they said it
Yeah.
may not be in the near future, but like if they get really pushed up against the wall where they're losing in, one of the other ways they can distract for a while is the arms and stuff they've supplied into that area they can use to make attacks on the, on the western side of
I mean,
Ukraine. It's not going to do anything,
they
but
got 1,300 soldiers there.
right,
It's
right.
not gonna do
But
anything.
but if they,
But we'll talk about it.
yeah,
We'll talk about it because
if
it also plays into what a drunken Dmitry Medvedev was saying about
Yes.
how we're going to take back Odessa.
We're back in
That's the
20.
point.
thank you,
Back in
Yeah.
20.
thank you.
Thanks, Chicago.
And then Soloviev saying that that Poland's next, and there's been a lot of this talk about Poland amongst them since Putin's interview that I find
Mhm.
very curious because it's like he's given everybody
There's a
permission,
lot to talk about Poland. Yeah.
and it's nuts.
Welcome back to the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back. Philip Bittner's joining us from Kiev live, and then of course Johnny Million is with us in Chicago, and I'm in Los Angeles. We're spread out all over the known universe. And hit that like for us. Subscribe to the show. Patreon.com/HalSparks. Great way to support the show. I'm trying to build out a better travel rig because 1 week from Monday, the Sexy Liberal Tour will be announcing all of our dates for the year. The of the two that that we have two that have already been announced, but the rest of them are going to be announced on that day. Me, John Fugelsang, Stephanie Miller, and Frangela out on the road. Maybe some red states in there even, changing hearts and minds, if not groins. So we'll be out there doing the comedy, and it's going to be a great time. Those will be announced on the 4th, I believe. Fingers crossed. I think that is the date that we've agreed on, and that will, tell you if we're coming to your town. So pay attention on that. It'll be on Steph's show on the 4th. That said, that's of course if the world isn't completely destroyed and we're not in World War II by then, according to Donald Trump. And World War 1.5 beta, I think is what he thinks it actually is. But we on an idea.
He doesn't have that kind of vocabulary. What are you talking about?
I try. So we were talking during the break a little bit about both Transnistria, and I'm blitzing on the little sliver of land left over on the coast that Russia has. I want to say Kaliningrad, but it's not that.
Moldova, you mean?
No, not in Moldova. It's that little triangular chunk, little country that Russia still has as a satellite. It's bugging me right now. Never mind. It does, but point being is that there was word this week from the Institute for Study of War that floating around in the intel community in Russia, and amongst them was a plan to basically take over that chunk of Moldova if things start souring in Ukraine as I don't know, maybe the sort of rice-a-roni of this particular war, the prize that you get if you actually lose. But and then on top of that, this idea that Soloviev and these others are coming out saying that Poland's next, and he said we wouldn't even hesitate to destroy Poland.
Yeah.
I don't even, maybe people are getting too used to this kind of language or whatever, but thinking about just like, again, their nation's Sean Hannity coming out and saying, and by the way, their nation's official Sean Hannity, that is state media. That nothing gets said on there that hasn't got the okay from the Kremlin in this regard, and that's not even a conspiracy theory. That's how they operate. Saying, just dropping that, we're going to, we wouldn't hesitate to just destroy Poland for the heck of it. And
Yeah.
yet them
Well,
calling.
he even went further than that. He even went further than that. Sobolev did. He said, we wouldn't hesitate because unlike they're not, the little tribe of Russians that is Ukraine, the Poles are completely different than us. So we wouldn't, which is condescending and insulting to Ukrainians as well at the same
Right.
time. So he's getting double measure in there. But he was, I mean, in thinly veiled language, he was saying, because we don't have this brotherly relationship like we do in Ukraine, we wouldn't have any problem with he literally said vaporizing their cities.
Right.
I mean, this is just incredibly irresponsible and dangerous talk. So, and there's a lot about Poland, but to step back for a quick minute
Yeah.
and talk about Transnistria,
Right.
they only have something like 1,300 soldiers in Transnistria, the Russians do,
Mhm.
and there's no way for them to bolster those numbers or to resupply those troops because they'd have to. There's no flight path
Right.
for them to get there, so they can't do a Berlin airlift, and they can't get to it by the sea because if they come out of their hiding places in the far east of the Black Sea, where they're bottlenecked in because of all the weaponry that Ukraine can use without a navy, these new, nautical drones
Yeah.
or the anti-ship missile batteries that they have all along the coastline. If they tried to resupply Transnistria by sea, they get slaughtered. So Transnistria to me I don't see how it could be an effective way to make a push from the west to the east.
Right.
Look, here's the thing, and this was supported by another statement by Dmitry Medvedev, the former prime minister and president, is this week, is that he is convinced that the Russians can take Odessa. And so this might be kind of like an allusion to a kind of a pincer move that the Transnistrian forces would go east and Russian forces would come west and they would meet and conquer Odessa. I have been to Odessa 3 times in the last 2 years for extended stays, weeks, if not a couple months at a time. And I can tell you this, Odessa is a fortress city.
Right.
Not only is Odessa an absolute fortress city, but the prior to the war, there was a question about where their allegiance was like. The general population there speaks Russian. It was built by Catherine the Great. It always kind of had a little bit of a leaning towards Moscow, but it is fiercely independent and would never bend the knee to either of them, Kiev or Moscow. But I can tell you this, having been there several times during this full-scale invasion, any goodwill that the Russians had in Odessa has been destroyed, along with all the buildings that the Russians have been blowing up. I think it was there's a church down there, an old 18th century church, the Church of the Resurrection, or it might be Nativity. But either way, it's this old, beautiful church, and the Russians. By firing missiles into Odessa, there was an incident where to my knowledge, still hasn't been verified, but it might have been the missile itself, or it might have been debris from anti-air. But either way, the Russians are responsible for it. That was the straw.
Yeah.
I think that was the straw. And Odessites are famously known to be independent, but also stubborn.
Yeah.
And once they make a decision, they don't go back. It's a great city, and when this war's over, go to Odessa. It's one of the world's. It's an amazing, beautiful city. But they are a stubborn people. They are fiercely proud of their city, and they see it as this little enclave where they're special and unique. And they hate the Russians now with a passion.
Yeah,
they may still speak Russian, but they hate the Muscovites.
Right. That's the distinction. Is there gonna be at some point a descriptor now for the Muscovites as a country that's actually who attacked us, that Russians, the greater Ruski Mir of the people who live and identify as Ukrainians, and the rest of the old kingdom of it or whatever, are kind of Russian by ethnic origin because of the area, but the Muscovites are this group of like oligarchical criminal kleptocrats that attacked everyone, and also they're the same ones who made the deal with the Mongols when all this crap started back in the day.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah,
kind of
but I mean, I pity any Russian soldier. Well, I don't pity them because I'm finding it hard to be sympathetic to
sure,
Russians. So if you're Russian in uniform, and carrying a weapon in Ukraine on Ukrainian territory, I find it very hard to be sympathetic. But I will levy this warning, or I will make this statement: any Russian soldier that enters into Odessa, they are marching into a killing field. It will be it will be it'll
yeah,
be devastating. I mean,
right.
and they won't take it. And in the end, they
Well,
will.
partially
They
they
don't
would
have
have
the
to.
capacity to
No, they would have to
occupy.
enter through the
They'd have to
sea, which is
occupy
the
it.
same issue you'd run into with Taiwan.
Yep.
That's a
And
huge.
also, their amphibious capability has now been, severely diminished again because of these nautical drones and the missile system. So they
Right,
don't have the capacity to take Odessa. Full stop. So Dmitry Medvedev and this talk of a two-prong attack from Transnistria and
right,
from eastern holdings that the Russians have
yeah.
taking on Odessa is a pipe dream. And Dmitry might want to lay off the vodka because he's delusional.
Well, on that note, let's take a break, and when we come back, I want to talk about the. It's been a bad week for aircraft in Russia, and also I would like to address to some degree the sort of conversation about like the idea of war profiteering and the conversation on our side about it that has been co-opted by the Marjorie Taylor Greens of the world. That they have used the language of military industrial complex to not attack the offenders in these fights, but the defenders in these fights. And that shouldn't be lost on anyone. We'll be back right after this. That, I think that's got to be more of a part of the conversation. That all of a sudden the MTGs of the world are aligning themselves with like the Kuciniches of the world as if everybody's the same kind of peacenik, and saying the military-industrial
Yeah.
complex is the problem. They just want these wars or whatever. As if, A, Russia hasn't put itself on a war footing and isn't running its entire fucking country as a military factory. Now it used to be a gas station, whatever, or like a, what was the phrase for the
Uh,
a gas
yeah, it was a gas station with the nuclear arsenal or
yeah, right.
something
Yeah,
like
with
that.
nukes.
Yeah.
It's a gas station with nukes. Now it's simply just a nuke factory or an arms factory. Small arms, nothing good, and they're
That's the only way they're in. It's the only way their economy is working. Everybody's
yeah,
raving about, mystified by their economy. It's a self-fulfilling. It's an engine that feeds upon itself. It's the
right.
what's the thing that the perpetual
Motion
motion,
machine. Yeah.
machine. It feeds itself, but
Back in
that's
20.
not
Back in
going to
20.
last forever. Thank
Yeah.
you, Chicago.
Thanks, Chicago.
That's
Yeah.
not going to last. You can't
No.
maintain. So their military-industrial complex is actually
Exactly.
keeping their economy afloat.
Well,
But it will run out of steam eventually.
that is
Ours
actually one.
will pay.
We're
Yeah, that is actually a military.
right.
Our industry
I'm
will
starting to understand
will.
why I don't have as much time to talk during my segments, because Devin's bumpers are 3 minutes long.
You want a quick promo, Hal? You got a quick promo, Hal.
Welcome back to the Hellsparks Radio Program. Mega World Chicago's first talk WCPT.
So welcome back. We were talking during the break, and it was, I have a real problem with the alleged peacenik crowd. Remember when the Russians were road testing the word warmonger earlier last year? It was on everyone's lips. Marjorie Taylor Greene was suddenly calling everyone a warmonger all of a sudden because apparently the military-industrial complex is only a thing to some of these folks when it starts aiding the defenders. My issue, I think, and a lot of people's issue, and I'd like, state this for the record, is the offensive aspect of a war for war's sake military governmental machine that was spoken of in what the alleged military industrial complex idea is about, is bad, is not good, is not something I want as an American citizen, is not something I want as a part of my country. On the other hand, though, the idea that I'm fundamentally naive and don't understand that just because we would stop being offensive means everybody else would too, and that there's a sort of kumbaya envelope that would come across the world if America would just stop being awful, and that we are the seed of destruction on the entire planet, which is a talking point I hear all the time. I've heard it on the far left for a very long time, obviously, but now it has bled over into the marginal right. I wouldn't even call them the far right at this point. MAGA is effectively the mainstream of the Republican Party at this point, certainly with the candidate that they are pushing for president. And the idea that the military-industrial complex is only a problem when people who are innocently attacked are suddenly about to defend themselves. It is, are beginning to be able to defend themselves. That's when it becomes bad. And then I go, maybe your complaint wasn't about, quote unquote, the military-industrial complex or any of that in the first place. Maybe you were just always trying to kneecap the country against the dictators that you actually side with. That as a useful idiot or an actual supporter of kleptocracy, dictatorship, or authoritarian regimes, that there's a reason why Dennis Kucinich is speaking at CPAC this week, and that he ran, Kennedy's campaign for a while until they split ways, and that Tucker Carlson, who's all of a sudden finding strange bedfellows on from Russell Brand, Jimmy Dore, and that crowd or whatever, that suddenly there's this broad consensus against the military-industrial complex that only pops up when the Ukrainians might be able to save their country, not when Russia starts it. This would go with my argument about the people who are like ceasefire now that never yelled that on October 7th. The noon on October 7th, they weren't yelling ceasefire now. It was only days later when a retaliation and an attack on Hamas as an entity became a thing, that suddenly the ceasefire that was broken by Hamas in the first place must be returned to. But in the middle of it, there was no, and don't get me started on cease rape now. There was certainly nobody's calling for Hamas to categorically refuse to allow that to be a weapon of war going forward. We're calling on them to release all the hostages and fight like a real fighting force on using the Geneva Convention. No calls for that whatsoever from the same folks. And that's the problem I have with this argument about this. While Russia, as we were saying during the break, is effectively at this point a military-industrial complex as a country. That's all it does right now. They sell oil below market value, below their break-even number, because they need to keep the pumps going. They're not making money off of it. So the only thing they're making money off of is this perpetual war machine.
Yeah. What is the symbol of the snake that eats its own tail?
Yes, right.
There's a name for that, and I'm gapping on it, but I think folks know what I'm talking about. This symbol of
eating its own tail.
It eats its own tail, feeds itself, but at a certain point, that's not going to be sustainable.
No,
and Russia might be able to maintain its economy
Ouroboros.
through this
The Ouroboros,
or the Ouroboros. There it is. Thank you.
Chat.
At some point, that's not going to be sustainable.
Right.
So there's that on the other side of the equation. The other thing that I find very frustrating in this conversation is as a kind of byproduct of this is that there's this argument that I see all over the place, again, against people who just want to see Ukraine lose.
Yeah.
Is Ukraine can't win, no matter, it's just impossible.
That's the language they're using,
even
right?
Try.
Yeah.
That's the language that they are using. It's impossible for them to achieve victory, so we shouldn't even try. And then, smart people who remember their history are juxtaposing that with Charles Lindbergh, saying, we shouldn't even try and support these English against the German war machine.
Right.
It's just impossible. At what point in time did we become so feckless?
Right.
We decide we are the most powerful military by
factor of 8.
huge
all the militaries in the world
factors, you know.
combined times 8. Yeah, that's how big our
Yeah,
military is, right?
we decide.
Yeah,
We can decide.
yeah,
If we want Ukraine to win this war, Ukraine will win this war.
right.
We just need
And
to.
we don't even have
We
to
used
fight
to
it
be the
for them,
arsenal for peace.
right?
And we don't have to play it for them. I was just on Sophia Square talking with a bunch of young Ukrainians, and I said, you know, we were doing a live. Somebody came up to me because they knew I was an American journalist, and they wanted my input for a live stream they were doing in English to mostly a Ukrainian audience. And I said, you know, like Ukrainians don't want troops here, and all the Ukrainians were like, "That's right, we don't want Western troops here. We want Western weapons so we
Yep,
can defend
right.
ourselves. You know, the arsenal of democracy is what we used to be. You know, there's all this talk of like, well, you know, Russia is this massive power and it won all these wars. And look, they're the ones that won World War II, which is, of course, not true.
Garbage.
You know,
And with
Trump
our
said
lend
this,
lease,
Trump said
right?
this.
And with our lend lease,
Yeah, firstly, they were the Soviet Union, which included Ukrainians,
right?
included Georgians, included, you know, you take your pick.
Right.
You know, so it wasn't just Russia. Russia has not won a war without being part of an alliance since the 19th century. Secondly, they drove to Berlin in Studebakers, the great T-34, which the Russians love to rave about, the best main battle tank of the Second World War, had a Ford engine inside of it.
Right.
Baloney.
Yeah.
It was U.S. merchant marines bringing material to the Soviets that made that push on Berlin possible. That's not happening now.
Right.
They're not part of an alliance unless you include the, you know, North Korea and Iran.
And the Chinese and Iran, right? Yeah, a little bit. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So
I would like to also,
this narrative that's being put out that one, Russia is invincible and can't be stopped, and secondly that
Ukraine can't win.
defeat is inevitable, we shouldn't.
Right.
We decide. If we decide to get behind Ukraine, there's not a question in my mind that heck, even if we don't support them, the Ukrainians are going to fight. There'll be a partisan war. There'll be guerrilla warfare.
Yep.
And that's assuming the conventional forces fall apart, which they're not gonna, because the Europeans are stepping up.
Yes.
This defeatism only because Trump is in Putin's pocket.
Yeah,
that's what it is. That's what it boils right down to. They don't want Ukraine to win
as
because
is
they're pro-Moscow.
Right. From you know, from everything I've heard, like Mike Johnson also has these weird ties that you only make it up into the ranks of the current Republican Party if you have these ties. Now, I would like to also remind everyone that the same people who are saying we shouldn't support Ukraine because they can't win, especially on the Republican side, are the very same people that are pushing, you know, the anti-abortion bills in the United States that and ones that do not have exceptions for rape and incest, and who believe and have said the woman should just lay back and take it because it's God's will, and that there is no difference. But in the moral argument, there is no difference to saying the woman should just lay back and take it to saying Ukraine can't win against Russia, therefore we can't help them. We shouldn't help them. No difference morally. None. And that's the difference, I think, between the idea of the military-industrial complex as a thing that is this perpetual war machine, this ideology of it, which in the case of Russia is actually their present economy. That is the root of their present economy. And it's not me saying that. That's from their own Ministry of Finance. That's their own work. Like, read any Wall Street Journal, Bloomberg, any of the economics papers have all broken down where the Russian economy is right now and what it's based on. It's all based on the military and and keeping oil at break even, which is it's not at. It's at 60. They're selling it at $55 and their break even, or they're selling at $50 and their break even is 55. They're losing money on every barrel of oil at this point, but they're doing it to keep the pumps flowing. The same thing is true of China to some degree. This whole perpetual one day we're going to attack Taiwan and win. And so we have to build up our military for the sake of doing that as sort of an internal jingoistic way of protecting Xi Jinping from all the people who are mad that they released dam water during the floods rather than let it hit Beijing, they just flooded entire villages. Thousands of people were killed last year because they didn't tell them that they were diverting the water that way. Something that if it happened in any Western country would be the end of whatever administration was running that and the party associated with them forever. Just happened and just off it goes. There we go. And so this idea that this differentiation between the sort of military industrial complex is the idea of a militarily offensive mechanism within government funding military expansion for the sake of that thing, versus there are real threats out there from real violent actors who really want to do us harm, and we have to be realistic about that. And for a while now, it for whatever reason, that conversation has just been off the table. And during that time, Russia has built up all of its military weapons, attacked Ukraine when everybody said they weren't going to, has sent military forces into Sudan and other places to just steal gold and slaughter people. What the Wagner Group has been up to in Africa is some of the most horrifying acts of human depravity in the world. And yet,
I mean, it's
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, and yet across this bizarre horseshoe theory, far left, far right factor, both of these groups of people are going, boo U.S. military, boo, us helping people protect themselves. Even the Iron Dome, giving Israel wares to have the Iron Dome up just to keep missiles from hitting civilian areas, by the way, protect them both from Hezbollah and Hamas during this time, is somehow that's us being offensive in this particular situation. Never mind the fact that we're giving an equal amount of aid to the Palestinians in money, an equal amount. Same amount of money that's going to the Iron Dome is going to Palestinian aid in this situation. In Ukraine, it's very strange to me that this is, I would guess, the weaponization of the peace movement. Is that what we're seeing in that regard? I've blathered through this, but let's take a break. When we come back, we're going to take some questions because I want to get them. But go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
You have one quick point?
Yes.
No, take a break. Or one quick point. As loathsome as a character as he was, Colonel Jessup had one thing right. We live in a world, unfortunately, that has walls, and there must be men with guns standing the line on those walls.
Right.
And he was right about that. He was a terrible character, but aside from that, he was right about that.
That's how you weaponize truth. He weaponized the empathy and reality of the situation to do his awful, and that's what's happening online largely. But that's just that's been stuck in my craw for quite a while, and it's something we've got to start openly talking about. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Yeah. Well, that's
a great monologue. That's a great monologue. He's a terrible character.
You want me on that wall. You need me on that wall.
You need me on that wall.
No, I don't. I need somebody. I need someone on that wall that serves honorably and does it. But it ain't got to be you, motherfucker. That's the point.
Yeah.
No, I don't need you on that wall. Because you're
you're abusing your power.
Right.
Yeah. But you make a very good point about, like, these are defensive weapons. The dome, the Iron Dome, is intrinsically defensive. You can't use it for offensive.
Right. They're proximity missiles. They only go off if a missile's next to them. Also, Sam in our chat is saying Biden says at least 28,000 dead Palestinians, include 7,000 children. Biden also says Israel is over the top in their response. Okay, let me be abundantly clear. The 28,000 number is from the Gaza Health Ministry, which is a Hamas organization. It has never gone up, oddly enough, and it is always civilians. And every time they talk about it, it's half children. Every single time. Whatever happens, it's always half children. That's impossible. Secondly, there have been over 45,000 bombs dropped in Gaza by the Israelis on buildings. And if the death toll from those bombs is less than one person per bomb, you definitely can't say their goal is genocide. If it is, they're the worst at it ever. That That categorically is ridiculous.
Back in 20.
Thank you. It makes no sense. There is no way that an army like the Israelis, with the goal, have a goal of genocide, and drop 40,000 bombs and only kills 28,000 people. If that's their goal, it's impossible.
I am happy, you are happy, let us be happy together, whether the weather is cloudy or sunny. I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky, let us get lucky together, whether the weather is cloudy or breezy. I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. Cause isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you, chugga chugga choo choo woo? I am smiling, you are smiling, let us smile together, whether the weather is cloudy or stormy. I will still be there in the morning, I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning, I hope that you like cereal.
What were you holding up there for those listening at home, Phil?
That's a little Ukraine. They oftentimes refer to their soldiers as Ukrainian cats. So this is a little soldier Ukrainian cat.
Aw, come on.
Battle uniform. Yeah.
They're
lovely people here. They're very kind, empathetic. They take, they love animals. They're saving dogs. There's a whole movement here about finding pets in occupied territories or territories where war has been affected.
I want
and
that,
bringing them back to
that giant
lovely
cat,
people.
the Maine Coon that they found, that giant cat that they found in one of the villages early on. I was like, I want to adopt that cat.
Or when the flood, when the flood happened in Kherson,
Yes.
they were going around in boats, picking up dogs. I mean, look. I'm not going to dehumanize the Russians, but it's a different mentality here, and there's a lot more. I'm going to get myself in trouble, but I've lived in both places, and Ukrainians have a different perspective about the value of life than the Russians do. Sorry, it's the way the culture is. For a lot of different reasons that go into some very dark areas of their history and their culture. But this is one of the things that divides the Ukrainians from the Russians is the fact that they kind of have European values and including the value of life. I mean, life is cheap in Russia. Russians themselves will tell you that.
Right.
It's another reason this is the right side of the fight.
If you'll notice that Tucker did not have a big sit down with like groups of random Russians at any time. He walked around that supermarket by himself. When he said we, he meant his crew that was with him and the handlers that were helping him film. At no point, and I watched a bunch of his little side videos, that he put out about like, oh, isn't it nifty here? Odd lack of Russians in it. Just even the people that they could feed you, even they could bring up people and go, hey, come here. You're officially going to tell them how awesome things are. There weren't even those people. Amazing. Let's grab some questions because I've been eating that part of it up. So,
Sure. I've got a couple questions here. One is from CRL3232 over on Twitch. Do Ukrainian officials tell Democrats something different about their plans and what they say to Republicans?
No, I doubt that very much. I can't categorically say because I'm not inside meetings, but I'll tell you what I do think when they tell Americans things that they are increasingly, since the beginning of the war, become much more cagey about speaking directly and honestly with Americans because they don't know where that information is going to go.
Right.
And it's primarily almost exclusively on the GOP side, I will admit that. But I think that they are wary of telling Americans anything because there is a perception here, and I share the perception and the concern that we're compromised, man. America has been infiltrated. Look at Smirnov. Look at I mean,
Yeah.
not just Smirnoff. Smirnoff's just the latest.
Right.
You know, when are
Raleigh.
we going to realize?
That
When are we going to realize?
the guy who so there was a report this week about a guy who came up to Pompeo at the Claremont Institute's conservative meeting in, I want to say, 2019, and gave him a thumb drive of compromat on Joe Biden, where Joe is, like Joseph Biden is spelled Joseph, and it's the same stuff that's on the hard drive, just in a crappier form, essentially. That they got better at making it look real, essentially, and they passed out these hard drives and these thumb drives at like every main FBI office in the country. Some rando walked up, and it could have been very well been this Raleigh guy and Smirnoff just flying state to state. Hey, how you going? I know this about Joe Biden. You need to have this, and drop it off, and then he leaves. And so that the Republicans rather, so that the Republicans could literally say they received information about Biden at every FBI office in this country. That's how corrupt he is. It was the same info from the same guys, but right, just amazing.
Yeah, but we are clearly deeply compromised when it comes to the way the Russians have infiltrated our, not only our body politic, but our media and our in the Department of Justice. And this is a long time this has been going on. Smirnov is just the latest. If you count them all up, all these incidences, the GOP goes crazy about, like, why is it always Russia, Russia, Russia? Well, it's because Russia thinks that they're at war with us, and they're
acting like it
accordingly.
Yep.
Yeah. So again, to get back to the question, I think Ukrainians are being very cautious about what they tell any American that comes over, because they don't know who's going to be a direct funnel back to the Kremlin.
Yeah. So let's grab another one, Johnny, real quick.
Yeah, I've just got one more for now. Edge 3D Tech, can you ask Philip how we can lobby House members to get Ukrainian aid moving?
Call your elected official, especially if you're in a red state. These numbers are easy to find. Heck, even if you are in a blue state, call your representative. And express to them. They listen when you call or when you email, because they figure that the percentage of people who care or pay attention is relatively small, and then the percentage of people who care and pay attention who actually are proactive about it is even more minimal. So they multiply each and every one, and extrapolate from there. Hey, there's also, I don't know how effective this would be, but I'm 100% for it. Call Speaker Johnson's office and leave a message saying, "Hey, man, get that thing on the floor."
I think
it can't hurt.
I think I'm going to do that during the morning show every day this week. I think Monday, Wednesday, and Friday this week. I'm going to put a call in to the Speaker's office on the air. I think that should be a regular feature.
Great. Do it.
Yeah.
Do it. And if you're anywhere, look, today, if you've got the wherewithal and it's not too late in the day, there are protests, or not protests, but there are meetings and assemblies happening all around the world. In London, there was a massive turnout. All around Europe, there's been massive turnouts. I know that there is a group in Washington that is meeting today, a large group meeting all throughout the day. If you're anywhere near the Beltway and you don't got anything to do today, get the car, drive on over. Show your support vocally and publicly.
Yeah.
We need to let our elected officials know that the American people stand with the Ukrainian people. At least I hope they do, because these are lovely people, and we promised. And this will have such massive effect on not only our allies, but also our enemies. Are we a fair weather friend? Are we a reliable ally? What are we? We told the Ukrainians we would support them as long as it took, which I never liked to begin with, but we openly said that.
Yep.
And we've said other things as well. We promised in '94 we would respect their borders if they gave up their nukes. We promised these people.
Right.
And the world is watching. And if we just give up our support for Ukraine, and they are, and they go through a longer period of a war of independence, because I don't think they'll ever be defeated because they're never going to stop
No.
fighting. It's existential for them.
Yeah.
It's life or death. Publicly show your support for the Ukrainian people, and hopefully our elected officials will take notice.
Mm-hmm.
And also call in or message various media organizations and pressure. I mean, the fact that Smirnov's story was on A16 of the New York Times is
pitiful,
is irresponsible, pitiful, is negligent. Whatever editor decided to put it on that far deep into the news part of the paper should whoever is his supervisor, at least give him a good talking to, if not chuck him out the door, because that was disgusting.
The same editor that it took them 2.5 months to talk about the sexual violence on October 7th. It's the same, again, I think
we have a problem. Our media landscape has a real big problem.
And I think partly we need, you may be right that would have more of an impact in some cases than even, a letter to the editor's situation might have more of an impact than actually contacting Johnson's office. Although I think you should do both. I think some reaching out to these media organizations, going, "What the hell's wrong with you?" may actually drive them to it. Look at how they used to respond to tweets back in the day. They used to, CNN used to air people's tweets. And go, well, this is what viewer blah 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 said, even if they were fake. It was just weird. They would just post them up, and they respond to those things almost, knee jerk. We're at the end of the show. I want to thank everybody. I want to remind everybody, go to Philip Bittner's YouTube channel before we run out of time. After the show, premiere coming to
after this. It's a big premiere, big announcement. Go take a look.
Go his YouTube channel, Philip Bittner, 1L, 2 T's. Johnny Million's got a show a couple times a week too. It's Johnny Million on Twitch and YouTube. It's. And I'm going to go not talk for a while because my throat's worn out. Love you guys. Thanks so much. Chat room. Yeah, cheers. See ya. Bye, everybody.
All right, guys. Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
See you later. There they go. The lovely people. And oh my, look at my green screen showing. It's such bad form. It's just, thanks, Chicago. Thanks,
Am
Johnny.
I still with you? You still got me? Thanks, Chicago.
Yeah, I hear you, and I'll see you later. Okay.
Oh.
Bye.
All right, buddy.
You're off.
See ya.
Okay.
I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Right.
Appreciate it. Have a good one. And let's see if I can fix this source. Why is my camera just terrible? First of all, move it down, and then I can't, you know what? I don't even know why I'm fixing this, because it's when I go home, it's going to be all better or whatever. But who cares? I do have kind of a green hologram Princess Leia thing going on, so I didn't quite mind. My ring light in here is dead. That's what happened. I only have 2 lights in the LA studio, and I'm guessing one of my roommates clipped the wire. It looks a little pinched, I'm just gonna say. And yeah, it's dead. I don't know why, but that's why I had a green halo, because it doesn't have enough light to cut me out of the background, and so I'm all crinkly. But with the space background, it kind of works. I think this is going to be my go-to if I have a shit green screen in the future, because at the very least I just look like, help me, Obi-Wan, you're my only hope. But either way, off I go. Go check out Phil's thing. I'm gonna let you guys go. I appreciate you guys so much. I need some sleep. Anyways, yes, yeah, I got 2 roommates here. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys later. Take care. Like, subscribe, help me. Patreon.com/HalSparks. Great way to help. And we're gonna. We gotta. This little M1 laptop was supposed to do wonders, but apparently not. Womp. I'm gonna have to get one of those shit PC gamer laptops, aren't I, to do this? And that's gonna work. That's what's gonna have to happen. Is that what's gonna happen now? Fine. You made me do it. I didn't want to do it. I do have a Mac, and it's great for everything, but except this. I don't know. It's OBS. It's the weird part. Anyways, I don't need to talk about it. I just need to solve it. You guys are lovely. Thank you guys for putting up with this. And I'm sorry I was late getting on the air, but it just wouldn't link up. So anyways, much love to you, and I will see you on Monday. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, guys.